How I scour a really dirty raw sheep's wool fleece, common mistakes to avoid and why. Most videos on scouring start with a fleece with barely any vegetable matter, mud or paint marker, but in most cases this is unrealistic and gives an unrealistic result. I will be scouring an average dirty fleece with some muddy tips and also paint marker, so that you can see how well it turns out. Please see my previous video, How to Skirt a Raw Wool Fleece, for a complete guide on how to prepare raw fleece for scouring. This is my scouring shed where I scour my fleeces and also keep most of my scouring and dyeing equipment. I use large truck buckets which allow me to scour a decent amount of fleece at a time and still allow the fleece plenty of space. I could do with a bench beneath them to save bending so much though. This is the water heater. It works on LPG gas, butane or propane. The ignition is powered by batteries, and although mine is connected to mains water, I believe that they don't require a high water pressure and will work from collected rainwater. So they would be a great off-grid solution. However, they do require really good ventilation. I have an old second-hand spin dryer. It gently spins the wool between washes and rinses. And then I have my drying racks, which are actually designed for flat drying clothes. There are two main ways of scouring fleece. The one that I am using today is achieved by utilising the lanolin in the fleece. I call it the lanolin melt method. This is the same method that is used in most of the commercial scouring plants, only ours is scaled down and uses less chemicals. The other method is the suint method, or fermentation method, that utilises the potassium in the sweat, called suint, that is in the fleece. They both have advantages and disadvantages, but the main disadvantage of the suint method is the appalling smell. The lanolin melt method. Lanolin is a waxy substance that is secreted from the sheep's skin, much like the sebaceous oils that we secrete. It covers the skin and wool fibres in a waterproof and moisturising layer. Therefore, any dirt that comes into contact with the fleece attaches to the lanolin rather than the protected wool beneath. By melting the lanolin, the dirt is also removed. I found that I had a lot to say about lanolin. So in the interest of those who want to get on with it, I have already created a video on lanolin and how to extract it, and I'm currently working on another to show how to refine it, so please have a look out for those two videos. Because lanolin melts at between 38 and 40 degrees Celsius, 100 to 107 degrees Fahrenheit, the wool needs to soak in water that is hot enough to still be at least 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit after a 20-minute soak. The melted lanolin is suspended in the hot water. If it cools and solidifies again, it will reattach along with some of the dirt to the now naked wool fibre. This will make it a lot more difficult to clean. Because the first soak is the most impactful, this is the best time to add your scouring agent. The scouring agent will force its way between the melted lanolin, pushing it away along with the dirt. I use a variety of scouring agents. Unicorn Power Scour or Australian Fibre Scour for the softer or lustrous fleeces. Washing up detergent such as Dawn or Fairy, or an eco washing up liquid for everything else. All are effective, but I find that both the Fibre Scour and the Power Scour are gentler on the wool and smell amazing. Because the lanolin forms a layer between the wool fibre and the dirt, the more lanolin that is in the fleece, the more easily it is to remove the dirt. It's unfortunate that the areas that get most dirty are the tips, and because lanolin is secreted by the skin, the tips have the least amount of lanolin to protect them, making the tips the most difficult to get clean. You can do a cold soak, tips down preferably, without scouring agent before and or even after the scouring, provided the wool has cooled. To loosen any small vegetable matter and mud, and without melting any of the lanolin. The cleaning is more efficient when the wool has more space, so placing it loose in your buckets, preferably tips down, is going to give the very best results. But this is labour intensive and is harder on the back. I use mesh laundry bags when using the spinner anyway, but I do sometimes soak the wool in the mesh lawn bags themselves to save my back. When I lift them out, I hook them above the bucket so I'm not holding the weight while they drain a little before I transfer them to the spinner. Playing with the wool while it's soaking is almost irresistible, but just do not do it. Heat plus water plus agitation equals felting. You can press the fleece down, but be careful to avoid any sideways movement while pressing. Before I take the fleece out, I will start preparing the next bucket of hot water so the wool does not get a chance to cool too much whilst out of the water. Wool does not like dramatic changes in temperature. Before having a spinner, I used to create my own centrifugal force by donning my waterproofs and spinning it by my side. You would have to be careful where you did this, as a sunbathing or barbecuing neighbour, or even a neighbour with washing drying, may not appreciate it. To empty the dirt, I use a watering can to save my back. I am incredibly fortunate that I have a grid to a land drain just outside my scouring shed. I spin the fleece between every wash and every rinse. I do 2 washes, but only put about half the amount of soap in the second hot soak. I then do 2 rinses. I use hot water for both my rinses, partially because dramatic changes in temperature is not good for the fleece, and partially to reduce the drying time. Obviously, hot damp fleece will dry much quicker than cold damp fleece. I do often try to reuse the second wash and rinse for the first wash and rinse of a new batch, adding more soap to the wash water. The disadvantages of doing this is that the water won't be as hot even if you top it up, and you can run out of buckets very quickly. Spun fleece can end up being sat waiting and can cool quickly. You will find that you will have to work very quickly to keep everything hot, and as I have Parkinson's disease, working quickly is not a natural trait. I do share the space with an apricot tree and a grapevine, which is very lovely, especially the apricot, which blossoms very early before any other signs of spring. I love it in here, but as romantic looking as they are, they do make things more challenging. Apart from blocking a lot of the light, they both drop their leaves in autumn and they drop their blossom in spring. The apricot will also drop lots of immature fruit once they start to ripen. And once they start to ripen, I'll be sharing the space with wasps. We even had a nest last year. The blossom of the grapes are like tiny little flowerlets that drop all over my drying racks and are still doing this. This means hoovering the racks before each scouring session. I have made the absolute definitive decision to remove the grapevine so many times, but yet it's still here. I have invented a solution to removing those that fall on the wool whilst drying and other small bits of vegetable matter that remain in the fleece after scouring. It works as a fibre tumbler, and I will be sharing my invention in a future video. So watch out for that one too. The results. Not only does the cat like to sleep on my drying racks, there has obviously been some kind of chase, be it a cat after a mouse or one of my dogs after the cat. I used to have several more of these drying racks. While they are out here all year and the extremes of summer and winter over several years has made the frames more brittle. Even so, I would still have a lot more of them if it wasn't for the cat. We don't own the cat. A neighbour moved away and left her behind to fend for herself. She chose to live here. Without her, we may have unwanted 4-legged visitors, so I am happy to tolerate her occasional misdemeanours, and I am hardly going to send the poor girl away. So let's look at the fleece that didn't end up on the floor. Have another issue. We have a new hole in the roof. right above the fleece. Marvellous. Now then, a lot of this on the fleece is from the grapevine. Like that is a little flowerlet from the grapevine, and there's lots of them. So we will have to see if my tumbler invention does remove them. There are clearly some bits that I missed in the skirting process. This is the area of the fleece with the muddy tips that I kept during skirting to see how well it would clean. Scouring hadn't removed everything, but overall I'm happy. I reckon brushing the tips with a flicker brush or dog slicker brush plus my tumbler invention may help too. As predicted, the paint marker has lightened considerably but has not been eradicated. As I said earlier, a cold soak before or even now could improve the result, but considering this was certainly not a coated fleece, it was paint marked and muddy, I'm really quite happy with the result. Obviously the natural colour of the wool has a huge part to play as well. A naturally creamy white wool isn't going to be as white as, say, a Valley Blacknose fleece, or at least not without bleaching agents. Which is a point worth mentioning. The commercial scouring plants do add hydrogen peroxide to the final scour water to bleach or whiten the fleece. You can also do this at home, but from my experiments with hydrogen peroxide, there is a fine line between whitening and seriously damaging the strength and feel of the wool. If I were to start with a fleece that had no mud or vegetable matter, or even wool for a breed of wool that had a particularly white fleece, then obviously I would get a whiter and cleaner looking result. But most sheep are not coated, and sheep get into all kinds of mischief, so I am scouring a fleece more akin to what you may well come across. A quick reminder of mistakes to avoid. Hot soaking for so long that the water goes cold or below the melting point of lanolin. Not adding detergent or scouring agent in the first soak. This is the very best time to add soap. Handling the wool more than is absolutely necessary when wet and hot. Water plus heat plus agitation equals felting. Another note worth mentioning is that you can add salt with the detergent, and this will help you get the wool clean. I tend not to do it because I'm always concerned that I don't want any salt residue left on the fleece. And there you have it, clean, fresh and naturally soft sheep's fleece. Thank you for joining me today. If you have found this video helpful, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more woolly videos. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. See you next time.